Welcome to some discussion of commentary. Before we get started on that, let's make sure that you know the rules for having good evidence. So let's take a look here at columns A and column B. Which one of these two columns is correct? Hopefully you picked B because it has an extra citation here. And the problem is, without that citation, that means you have a sentence of evidence which is not cited. That's a problem. Okay, let's go on to our next one. A or B? Which one is correct? Remember, look for the differences. Oh, yeah. That would be A. I have no idea what happened here, but this is actually from a student. So you may want to double check that you have your citations correct, because Hermes is a god, not the author. Okay, next one. Let's take a look at this. Which one is correct? Hopefully you spotted it. The problem here is in the citation. You have the period here. Now, a period ends the sentence. That means this sentence ends at that period and it has no citation in it. That would be plagiarism, which is bad. Are you ready for another one? Okay, A or B, which one is correct? Okay, hopefully you spotted that there's a problem right here. And this is a problem that actually quite a few of you guys are doing. It doesn't end the citation or the quotation, sorry. So when you have a quotation, you have to use quotation marks both at the beginning and at the end. Now, this is not technically correct because when you have quotations backed up to punctuation, the punctuation is supposed to go inside. So that would actually be the correct answer. But even having the quote and the punctuation backwards is still way better than not ending it, because what this essentially does is it says, hey, all of this is an exact quotation, which of course we know is not true. So you have to tell me where a quote starts, but you also have to tell me where that quote ends. So make sure you're not messing that up, because I do have quite a few people. Now let's get into the main part of this, which is commentary. Now, commentary really it's a form of explanation. And there are two things that you are going to get in commentary. Commentary is going to have one, a type of reasoning. Oh, why are you not typing? There you go. And we're going to talk about two kinds of reasoning today. And that's going to be comparison or contrast. Now, are there others? Oh, heck yeah. And we'll get there. But let's just start with two. Let's not try and get all fancy yet. The second thing that you're going to have in commentary is a return to the opinion. Whatever it is that you're trying to focus on, a commentary is going to come back to that. And let's take a look at how that actually works. But right now, in your own words, can you tell me, what are the two things that you are going to find in commentary? Well, go tell me. Okay, considering I went over that like literally 2 seconds ago, I'm assuming that you got that right. So, contrast commentary. Commentary means that you cannot rely on facts alone to support what your opinion is. And the example I always give kids is years ago, I had a student teacher who was coming in after school to talk about how the classroom ran, what the classroom expectations were, so that she would be able to function in the classroom more efficiently, which was very admirable. While she was there, a student came in after class and he walked in. He's like, did we do anything for last week? And I'm like, well, yeah, we were working on this. Do I have to do all of that? Well, yeah, it's your grade. You got to get caught up. Ugh, fine. And left and, was cranky the whole time. The minute the kid was gone, the student teacher said, oh my God, I bet he is a pain to have in class. What an attitude. And I looked at her and I said, he's actually a lovely student to have in class. But he went home with one of his friends after school last week, and his friend's father committed suicide while the boys were in the house. He wasn't a problem kid. He was a kid who was suffering trauma. And that's what I mean when I say you can't look at evidence and expect that to carry the weight of truth. Because one set of facts that he came in, he was rude, he had a really dismissive tone, he didn't want to do his work. That set of facts, one person might interpret that as rudeness, whereas I interpreted that as trauma. And so you have to be very careful that you explain your interpretation. And that's what commentary is. It is your explanation of how you are interpreting that fact. So we're going to start with contrast, which I find easiest. Not everyone does. Part of this process is going to be you figure out what type of commentary you're most comfortable with. So in this contrast, we have Athena is cunning. So cunning is really the opinion that we're focused on. And because we have to return to the opinion, I know that I'm going to have to come back to cunning. I now have facts. Athena is aware that Poseidon is a stubborn god. Tuck punctuation inside the quote marks. So while he is among the Ethiopians and unable to object, she wants to quickly tell Calypso to let Odysseus go. Okay, well, maybe I'm going to say, dude, that's not cunning. That's common sense. Maybe someone else might come in and say, well, I don't think that's either cunning or common sense. I think that's manipulative. I think she's a giant B word. So the same fact can be interpreted different ways. So you are going to have to explain to me why you think that is cunning. Now, if we're talking about why it's cunning, clearly you have to get the word cunning or a synonym in there, which is why number 2 is the rule, return to the opinion. But a type of reasoning, sometimes students are going to try to just repeat themselves or just continue to give new facts. But new facts aren't enough. You have to have a type of reasoning. So one of the things you can do is contrast it. Imagine that Athena was not cunning. So think about the opposite. What would have happened if she were not cunning? Would she have known to wait until Poseidon was gone? Would she have acted so quickly? Probably not. So you can look at the opposite and say, well, if she weren't cunning, this is what would have happened. That didn't happen. So clearly she's cunning. So you kind of set up a contrast by talking about hypotheticals that didn't happen. If Athena were less intelligent, so kind of getting that idea of cunning in there, she wouldn't have known to wait until Poseidon was gone. She would have tried to press her case while her uncle was right there, and he would have stopped Zeus from helping. So this is my explanation. Why do I think she's cunning? Well, I think she's cunning because if she wouldn't have waited, she would have, if she weren't cunning, she would have done this right in front of Poseidon. She would have gotten shot down. Odysseus still would be on that island. So that is my explanation. You can see that I am coming back to what my opinion is. Okay. And I have that contrast against what would have happened under different circumstances. Now, if you notice, commentary is almost always at least as long or longer than the actual evidence. So, when you are writing an argument, what does the actual argument look like? Well, you just take these three pieces. You take out all this extra stuff. And that right there is an argument. Okay, so let's take a look at another one. Now, I'm going to give this to you one more time, and then you're going to have to try on your own. So pay attention. Zeus was kind to Odysseus after Athena's prompting. Evidence: when Athena asks Zeus to help Odysseus, Zeus dispatched Hermes with a message for Calypso, causing Odysseus to be set free. Well, why is that so darn kind? Maybe I'm going to come along and say, well, that's not kind. If he was kind, he would have given him a ship, not just said, yeah, whatever, leave him alone. So somebody could definitely argue that these facts are kind. So you have to explain. First, I'm going to make sure that I know exactly where I am going. I need to focus on kind because that is the opinion. I'm going to do contrast. So I'm going to set this up with, okay, what if the opposite were true? I don't want to use kind. No. A less charitable Zeus would have allowed Calypso to keep Odysseus forever. After all, he didn't have to get involved, and he knew it would cause a problem with his brother Poseidon. So his willingness to show such kindness demonstrates his kindly nature. I'm going to change one of those. His willingness to take this action demonstrates his kindly nature. And sometimes you do. Sometimes you back yourself into a corner and go, oh, what? Okay, so I have charitable. I have kindly. And I set this up with, okay, if he weren't kind, if he were less charitable, he would have let Calypso keep Odysseus. If he were less charitable, he wouldn't have gotten involved. After all, he knew this was going to cause a problem, so his willingness to do this, that actually does show that he's very kindly. If you notice, again, commentary is at least as long or longer than evidence. And to form an argument, you would just have to put all three things together. Now, all I am looking for you to do on the next one is just the commentary part. So don't retype the claim or the opinion. So let's take a look at this. Opinion: Zeus cares for Odysseus as a mortal. Evidence: when Athena brings up the topic of Odysseus, Zeus wants to find a way to bring him back as he respects his intelligence and offerings to the immortal gods, then dispatches Hermes to send Calypso a message to release Odysseus. Okay, so we have that he cares. So it's going to be very similar to the one we just did, but we're going to have to bend it more towards he's caring. So my question is, if he were less caring of Odysseus, if he were less, well, if he were more callous, how would he act? And what does it prove that he doesn't act that way? Okay, so this commentary is going to be very similar because you have that similar idea of Zeus being Good. So right now, go write me a contrast commentary. And these things are often going to start with something like, if he were less caring, or a less caring God would have. And so you set it up by talking about what isn't true. Contrast it against the opposite. Go. Okay, hopefully you kind of have your head wrapped around contrast, because we are moving on to comparison. Now, this is a little bit more difficult because you have to make sure you're coming up with a logical comparison. But there are something called analogies. If you ever watch Judge Judy, you see analogies all the time. So you will have someone that lived in the apartment for a month, but then they refuse to pay rent. And at the end of the month, when they move out, they go, well, I didn't have heat, and I didn't like this, and I didn't like that, so I shouldn't have to pay. And Judge Judy always comes back and says, did you eat the steak? If you had taken one bite and returned it, you wouldn't have to pay for it. If you had at the beginning of the month said, I don't like this, and walked out, you wouldn't have to pay for it. But if you eat the steak, you have to pay for the meal. If you stay in the apartment, you have to pay the rent. She's making an analogy. So she's making this comparison to try to help people understand the point of view. So a comparison commentary relies on coming up with something that you can compare to. So, opinion: Zeus cares for Odysseus as a mortal. Evidence: when Athena brings up the topic of Odysseus, Zeus wants to find a way to bring him back, as he respects his intelligence and offerings to the immortal gods, then dispatches Hermes to send Calypso a message to release Odysseus. Now, we are still going to have to come back to whatever it is our opening claim is, in this case, caring. But now, what logically could we compare this to? That he steps in, he sends somebody out to, make sure something happens. Well, maybe that's a little bit like a police officer. So, Zeus is acting like a police officer who wants to make sure the citizens in the town are safe. He might not have a personal relationship with Odysseus, but like that officer, he cares that people under his authority are safe and protected. Okay, so a lot of times with these kinds of commentary, you're going to see this setup with, look, this person is acting like, or this is similar to. And so you're going to make that comparison, but you have to make sure that the comparison is valid. That, yes, that is what it is like. So Zeus is acting like a police officer who wants to make sure the citizens in the town are safe. He might not have a personal relationship with Odysseus, but like that officer, he cares that people under his authority are safe and protected. I don't want to repeat safe, so I'm going to take out safe and. Yeah. So by making this comparison, you are telling me, okay, why do you think that dispatching Hermes is really all that caring? Maybe I'm like, well, that's not caring. He would have done something else. But now the explanation comes in. It's like, whoa, time out. No, it may not be caring like your father wraps you up in a hug, but it is caring, like a police officer caring about law and order in the area and caring about the citizens. So you're making that comparison, that analogy, so that people will have a better understanding of how you're interpreting the facts. So let's do one more, and then again, you're going to have to do it yourself. So let's take a look. Yep. Okay. Zeus was kind to Odysseus after Athena's prompting. So kind is what I'm aiming for. When Athena asked Zeus to help Odysseus, Zeus dispatched Hermes with a message for Calypso, causing Odysseus to be set free. So this is focusing a little bit more on that he was set free. Well, who set someone free? That's not a police officer. So that's almost more like a judge. Well, is a judge kind? Well, a judge is kind when they feel like somebody has sort of been wronged by the law and they are there to protect rights. So, yeah, I can make that argument. So, before I said Zeus is acting like, the other common signalist phrase you see for this is similar to a judge setting a wrongly convicted criminal free. Well, neither the judge nor Zeus have personal feelings. They both act with great compassion, which is a synonym for kindness, when ensuring that innocent people are protected. Okay. Now, when I look at this fact, causing Odysseus to be set free, I have to say that doesn't feel kind because Zeus isn't sending him home. Zeus isn't giving him a boat. Zeus isn't doing a lot of crap. But when I look at that explanation, this is similar to a judge setting a wrongly convicted criminal free. True, they don't have personal feelings, but they act with compassion to ensure that innocent people are protected. All of a sudden, that fact that, quite frankly, I was really doubtful for, because in my mind, I'm like, well, he could have sent him home to Ithaca. He could have given him a boat. He could have protected him from Poseidon's storm. Yeah, I think he's a butt face. So the fact alone doesn't convince me, but the commentary makes me look into your head and interpret it the way you're interpreting it. So now I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that. I can see why you see that. So we have not done cunning. So let me grab this real quick. And drop it down here. And now I want you to tell me, what is Athena like? And you have to come up with something that is particularly cunning. So maybe you compare her to a thief who's really good at knowing exactly when she can steal something of great value. Maybe you compare her to, who would be really cunning? Well, you thieves have to use a lot of cunning, and sometimes you really have to stop and do some brainstorming. Off the top of my head, thief is sort of coming to me, but if something else is coming to you, I think that would be awesome. So you're looking for something that is particularly cunning and something that you can compare this action to. So go give it a try. Again, you can either set up with saying this is similar to, or you can set up with saying Athena is acting like. Those are two very common signal phrases that tell people you're going into comparison commentary. So go. Okay, hopefully you have a sense of commentary and what you need to do with commentary, because this is wildly important. Your assignment is going to be to go back and pick just one of your mortal characters. So you can write about Telemachus or Penelope. You can write about Odysseus, but you have to pick one of the human characters. And I want you to write me an argument. You already have the opinion, the claim. You already have the evidence. All you have to add is one piece of commentary. Good luck.